Yes, and I think we've seen, body ideology change over the years, and that certainly had an impact on fashion.
Welcome to Clothing Coulture, a fashion industry podcast at the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm Emily Lane.
And I'm Bret Schnitker. We speak with experts and disruptors who are moving the industry forward and discuss solutions to real industry challenges.
Clothing Coulture is produced by Stars Design Group, a global design and production house with more than 30 years of experience. Welcome back to another episode of Clothing Coulture. Award season is here. The red carpets have been rolled out. We've got fashion weeks happening all around the world. It's a very glamorous time in our industry. Although we're seeing a new trend on the red carpet and on our runways that is a little bit alarming.
And you're going to give us the skinny on that, right? No planned words.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. There are a lot of great trends to be celebrating. And in fact, in an upcoming episode, we're going to revisit a great friend of ours, Sharon Grobard, who is a wonderful trend forecaster, and have a little bit of a deeper discussion on this. But today we wanted to talk about, yes, Bret, the skinny behind what we're seeing. We are seeing an alarming trend towards uber thin. Think the gaunt days of the 90s. And now we're seeing that it's almost like skeletons walking down these red carpets. So let's talk about what's happening and what we're seeing, the rise of Ozempic and those kinds of drugs, this desire to be thin, and how that is influencing our space.
Yes, and I think we've seen, body ideology change over the years, and that certainly had an impact on fashion. I mean, as far back as prehistoric times when Neanderthal women would be super skinny to avoid being, dinners for dinosaurs. For sure.
We might want to check the history books on that one a little bit, but certainly,
I'm sure.
Certainly in ancient times, a more robust figure was considered to be fertile and more attractive.
And appetizing.
Right. You've got Rubenesque era Renaissance, you've got fuller shapes, which symbolized wealth, and somebody's eating really decadently. That really started to shift in the Victorian era. We had corseting come into play, really focusing on that hourglass figure. What I think is interesting about this time, though, is you've got that high bustle on the rear end, kind of amplifying the booty,
The early Kardashian period.
That's exactly right. I'm sure that's what it's called. And that really started to shift then in the 20s. I, of course, love the 20s. You've got that boyish figure coming in. That's not why I love the 20s. I love the music and, all of the spirit of the 20s. But it was really the first time we saw this kind of trend towards going thin. And throughout time, that waxes and wanes. You had Marilyn Monroe come to the scene and curves were back, and then Twiggy came to the scene on, modeling British fashion, and we've got to be thin again. So we've seen this back and forth over and over again. What's interesting, though, when these periods of thinness come into play, new mental disorders, eating disorders, and things of that nature really started to take hold. In the 20s and the 80s, there was a huge challenge with anorexia among women. And in fact, I believe in the 1990s when that came back during the whole, think heroin-inspired looks, it was as sad as that statement is. Terrible. Yeah. It's terrible. It was a leading cause of mortality among people, the anorexia challenges. Yeah. So I think that we saw great progress in recent years under these trends. We had body inclusivity come to the runways and people celebrating their curves. And I was very excited about where we were heading as an industry. For us, we were talking with many clients about making sure that they had, styles to accommodate fuller figures and making sure they had size runs to accommodate bigger sizes. And now all of a sudden, what's walking down the runway, even those numbers are diminishing.
Yeah.
As far as representation of fuller figured models. But I think it is a challenge. You know,
Yeah.
we're seeing size inclusivity on the runway, backsliding. We've got
Well, dramatically backsliding. I mean, Vogue kind of talks about out of the, 230 shows and 8,000 garments, something
8,000
like
garments,
that.
yes.
Only 0.8% really had what's represented as 14 plus sizing on the runways, and that has a profound influence on culture.
It does. You know, not only are we seeing the shifts in the silhouettes to accommodate this more linear look, but you definitely create more social pressure to be thin. So you've got rise of eating disorders and all of those concerns coming back. It does have some surprising benefits, I guess you would say. People are consuming. Is that a good? I don't know if that's a good or a bad.
Yeah.
No.
It's shifting the consumption habits, certainly, right?
Yeah.
As you lose weight, you've got to buy new clothes. The big catalyst to all this that we really haven't brought up is really a new medical thing that's come, to the surface. With Ozempic and Wegovy, it's kind of making it very, very easy to lose weight in a time.
Yeah.
In the past, you had to go through all these kind of crazy diets or unhealthy situations with eating disorders. Today, you basically do an injection and
boom,
you're just not hungry.
Smaller.
Yeah, you're at least 2 sizes smaller.
Right.
I think the statistics are pretty wild that, was it 15 million adults in the U.S. today are on some form of Ozempic or Wegovy.
Yeah.
For those that need it, right? Ozempic and Wegovy were created to, help diabetics and people lose weight so they don't have as many heart conditions. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But it really has created this huge catalyst where it makes it super easy to lose weight today. And what's wild is you look at that number, 15 million in the U.S., 6% or so of the U.S. already is taking it. It's an astounding number when you think how expensive it is today. Many times that's $1,000 a month, and that's a pretty unique group of people that can do it. It's a big bill a month.
Yeah.
As that particular pharmaceutical becomes less expensive, that number's bound to just go up. Yeah, globally for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it has had an impact in our landfills, I would say, as well as in the resale market. You mentioned, Bret, that as people lose weight, they need to refresh their wardrobe. So they say for every 2 sizes down, that is what inspires people to then let go of the old clothing and buy the new clothing. So there is a little bit of a buoy to the apparel economy.
Yeah, and for those people that are overweight or obese that have lost weight to a more normalized weight that's healthy for them, they feel better about their body, they're moving around, they're being more active, so their choices in terms of what they're wearing in clothing change too.
Right.
Clothing that's maybe a little more body conscious or things like that. And so the wardrobes are shifting in that case too. And so while that presents new opportunity for people in the industry, it also presents challenges.
Yeah.
Everything's a two-sided coin.
Right. Yeah. The old clothes are, if they're not destined for the resale market, which is becoming saturated right now with plus size clothing, it is, if not there, it's going into those landfills that we've talked about.
And it might be a little short-sighted. The statistics are that a lot of people that are on these medications are kind of on them for 2 years, and then they're kind of like, okay, I'm done. And once you're off that support system, sometimes people regain weight,
That's true.
To whatever degree, unless they've developed some healthy habits outside of that, exercise or whatever else. So they might not want to get rid of all those clothes so quickly, right?
Right. Yeah. It's pretty fascinating though, this trend. I think about my community of people and the number of people I know that are on this drug.
Yeah.
And you're right. There are times when it's needed and it does a lot of good for somebody. It helps them feel better, helps them get active, it helps them create healthy habits. All of those things are good.
Yeah.
When it's being used as a method to for beauty, somebody who isn't struggling with weight, but they want to be even thinner, look better for that red carpet, or celebrate this new revisiting of the gaunt trend. That's when I think it's alarming and concerning. And I would hope that those in the industry would start considering putting some of those plus sizes back on the runway again, so that we're not completely reverting back to antiquated ideas of beauty.
I think generally we have a responsibility to make sure that all shapes and sizes are celebrated. Human beings come in all shapes and sizes. Creating this kind of unrealistic image in general does have an impact with people that struggle with eating disorders, and that is a challenge. And it's okay to celebrate all shapes and sizes. So,
Absolutely.
I think it's important to be certainly aware of that.
The world is a diverse place, and there are people of all shapes and sizes, and like you said, they all need to be celebrated. So, well, thanks, Bret. Do you have any other thoughts on pharma fashion or any other trends that are hitting the runway that you look forward to discussing with Sharon coming up soon?
There's a lot of kind of wild trends that are happening on the runway, kind of this ultra sheer that's happening, I think, with people rediscovering their body. And I think that some people have gone way overboard in terms of ultra sheer. And
are there actually clothes on that person?
Yeah. Well, we know of a recent Grammy experience that's gone really kind of wild in that case. As people feel more comfortable with their bodies and they go ultra sheer, then we in the industry have to be very concerned, because then will clothing be optional someday?
Yes.
So no, I think I'm excited about, having Sharon come back, talk to us about what's happening overall as trend in a very interesting world today.
It is, certainly. Well, thank you, Bret, for joining me on this conversation. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to stay apprised of upcoming episodes.